delighted that we've got a couple of industry heavy hitters here today. Melanie Courtright from the Insights Association. I do apologise if your slides are moving ahead. I'm going to have to fix that. I'm sure you'll work it out. And Debrah Harding from the MRS. I don't think you need any further introduction, to be honest. So welcome and thank you for flying from the US.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for having me here. I'm excited. This is one of my favorite topics. Those of you who know my background, man, I just love talking about sample and sample quality. I'm an absolute nerd about it. And I've spent a lot of time in my career focused on this. And so it's exciting to me where we're at in our profession, that there's this coming together of global associations to work on something and to sort of take us to the next level. I've been in, the space for a really long time, and I can say without a doubt that these conversations about quality ebb and flow, right? We have these sort of inflection points where something is gone horribly wrong, and so we come together. But as a community, we always fix it. We always lean in. We always solve. We always create solutions. And every one of those solutions has an equal and opposite reaction to the solution, right? So it's definitely a journey. So I thought I would start today by just from our perspective talking to you about the quality landscape, where we are right now, and the way we see it, both in the US and my counterparts in the UK, in the global associations, in Australia. We all agree that we're about at one of those inflection points right now. Our current environment, as we see it from the association world, we talk to a lot of brands, a lot of buyers, a lot of agencies, a lot of suppliers. We have a really great wide view. And we're at one of those inflection points where there's a lot of anxiety and worry and concern about the state of quality in sampling. The quality concerns are on the upswing. There is a lot of fear language out there right now, and some companies use those as sort of a marketing technique, but they cause a lot of anxiety. And there's a lot of confusion. What really is the problem that's causing quality? There's a lot of inconsistent messages. Is it 40%? Is it 20%? Is it 5%? Is it all of it? Should we start the whole thing over, throw it all out, and just all go home? There's some alarmist language out there. 40% of every survey design is fraud, and there was actually an article that hit the major press in the U.S. a couple weeks ago that said that fraud is costing brands billions. It was just bad math, right? We know we have problems, but it's not costing brands billions. But we do have problems that we need to solve. And one of those problems is language, how we talk about it, what it means, what really is the problem. There's competition over clarity. So there are firms that would rather compete on quality than work together on quality, and would rather compete than provide clarity because they want it to be a competitive differentiator. And unfortunately, those companies can unfortunately erode trust in the wider ecosystem. I sit here in the role I'm in today, caring more about the ecosystem than I do about a brand. And I've worn a brand hat though, selling sample, so I get that friction that exists. But in the role that we're in, the place we're in now, we really need to be careful not to fully erode trust from the buyer's point of view. There is not a data-driven discussion around this. There's no data driving the conversation. This percent is fraud. This percent is dupes. This percent is a result of bad survey design. This percent, it's not a data-driven discussion. It's a fear-driven discussion. And so, we're advocating for more data-driven discussions. There's a bit of a blame game. It's the sample's fault. It's the buyer's fault. It's the survey's fault. It's a blame game. It's all of our fault, right? We all have to come together. And then there's, like I said, the eroding trust, and that's the biggest one for me, eroding trust and confidence in our space. So at these inflection points, we wanted to come together as and focus on a couple things. First, how we talk about it. The language we use, when we say 40% is 40% fraud, or is 40% removals that include fraud? What does the term fraud mean? What is the language that we should use? And how can we use language to communicate better with buyers and sellers? And then the things that we measure, share more data, measure things, and the things that we share. get really specific about the things that we should be sharing externally and with each other. And then the data itself, true participant fraud versus participant engagement issues or fatigue issues versus participant experience issues. They all play a part. And when we throw out numbers and we don't get specific about what those numbers mean, nobody knows how to fix them. And usually it's all of these things that are driving the numbers that are being removed from survey data sets. So with all of that in mind, that's a lot of work, right? If we were to work on all of that, if I, as the Insights Association, were to work on all of that, it would take me a decade. We don't have a decade. So we're going to come together as a body of professionals, and we're really excited about it. A true collaboration between CRIC out of Canada, SMR as a global player, Insights Association out of the US, the Research Society out of Australia, MRS out of the UK, SampleCon as a technology partner out of the US, and VMO, and I will let Debrah say that names properly, out of Austria. So we're going to come together, and let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do. CRIC is specifically going to focus on sample frame consistency and transparency and a buyer's quality snapshot. So we have that beautiful SMR 37, but for a lot of buyers, it's too far, too deep, too fast. So it's going to be a companion piece to the SMR 37. There'll be no competition between these associations. We're going to support each other and support each other's existing work, but also bring forward a lot of new things. SMR is going to focus on the participant experience, the role of survey design, and continue with their SMR 37. The Insights Association is focused very much on the language of quality. We want to stop the language that causes fear and introduce language that causes clarity and helps people with their buying decisions. Quality measurement, how do we actually measure quality and metrics, and a data integrity toolkit. The MRS is frauds and bots tech, which they've actually already got a lot of work going. I'm very excited about it, comparing different solutions that are out there. Mobile optimization with a paper that already exists that they've been running for a while and is a beautiful example of collaboration, even among competitors. So Debrah's going to tell you more about that. And then panel supplier data analytics. And each of these are going to come out with standards, best practices. It's that moment, that inflection moment where we're actually going to put together a body of work that's going to help us. SampleCon is going to do sampling technology codes like to handle ghost completes. And there are many of you in this room are involved in that, as well as benchmarks and standards. The Research Society is going to take on incentives, the language of incentives, how to use incentives, what incentives work, what don't, broadening our incentives skill set to think more about think about things that are more than just cash, and incentives guidelines. And then VMO is contributing to the body of work from the MRS, working with them on the data fraud and bot technology. So they're a big part of that. So we're excited about what we're going to do there. And I'm going to hand it off to Debrah to give you a good understanding of what MRS is doing, and then I'll come back.
I was saying to JT earlier today that I am quite short, and people who've met me on sort of Zoom and things, when they meet me in real life, go, "You really are quite short." So I was really relieved today to find a lectern that isn't here, and I haven't been offered a box to stand on. So these are all good starts to a day, but that isn't what I'm here to talk about. It's lovely to see you all. I'm here to talk to you today about what the MRS is up to, give you a bit more of that detail from what Melanie has supplied you. So I'm going to focus on three areas. Internal solutions, and what I mean by that is the solutions that exist within the research sector and the projects that we have got stemming from that. External solutions, which is investigating and leveraging solutions from outside of the sector and how we might learn from those and bring them in. And also building on what we have. And I'm going to focus on the mobile optimization project that has the MRS has been involved in the last 5 years, which Melanie's already alluded to, as an example of what we can do if we get this right and the right approach and the right solutions. So I'm going to cover three-part to my presentation. So looking at the internal solutions, even within bot and fraud technology, what do we mean by that? That's a very broad set of phrases. And so we are also looking at the terms and definitions to describe bot and fraud technologies. It's a companion piece to the broader work that the IA is doing to make sure that we're all on the same page and talking about the same things. In addition to that, we have done already significant work identifying and classifying research sectors' approaches to combat fraud across modes and methodologies. So all of the working group have been really sharing all of their experience and knowledge to produce significant amounts of information about all of the different things that we're already doing, but in a way that is sharing it, collaborating, but also classifying those different approaches so that practitioners can look at it and think, okay, can I afford that? Is it an expensive option? Do I need specialized staff? Do I need to give training? Is it something which I can buy in? So all of those kind of different facets to each solution, we're going to describe in great detail so that practitioners can look at the documentation that we produce and actually take it away and implement it within their businesses. But doing that, we also don't want to create new problems for ourselves. Looking at some of those solutions, there are one or two things to do with GDPR and sort of legal and ethical issues which also need to be considered. What we don't want to do is to solve one problem and create a whole load of other problems. So again, we will be analysing the different approaches and just sort of doing things like things you need to think of when using this technique to make sure that practitioners don't end up falling victim and foul to legislative issues. We're also hoping to compile a list of the sources of fraud. And again, this is a project which we're working closely with the IA with, because the IA is also ahead on this in terms of having already done some work in the US. This isn't about trying to find Joe Bloggs in the high street that happens to be, ploughing his way through 50 surveys every 10 minutes. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about are sources whereby there could be click farms, it can be potential sites that are telling people how to defraud the sector, and to try to work with likes of Meta and LinkedIn and YouTube and so on to see if we can get those sources removed so that we actually try to stem the flow of fraudulent practices and information that's out there. This is probably the hardest thing, and in terms of because we're having to really at great reliance upon the platforms. And so it's with a heavy heart that Rebecca Cole from Courtright Sky is the person within our working group who's leading on that one. So as always, Rebecca, you've got the most difficult thing. But we also don't want to forget about the fact that this isn't just about quantitative research and surveys. Qualitative research is also facing and has faced for a long time significant issues with fraud. And so we have a specific group looking at the qualitative issues, not only in terms of the issues that are facing qual today, but those that are going to face qual as generative AI really picks up and becomes more widely used, how some of those technologies could really have quite a damaging impact on the future of qualitative and indeed quantitative as well. So these are this is the group of internal solutions that we're working on. But as I say, we know fraud isn't unique for research. There are loads of sectors that are having similar problems to us. If you talk to academia, people in journalism, financial world, gambling, the leisure industry, the sort of ratings sites, all of those, they've all got the same problems. We're all facing the same challenges. Technology, it doesn't have parameters. And so what we are looking to do is, and we're already having discussions, is talking with those external sectors to understand what they are doing, and are there things that they are using that could be used within the research sector, could be adapted, could be taken wholesale, and to see how we can utilise experience from some of the sectors who've had different problems for a longer time, and they're now our problems. So, borrow with pride is one of my favourite phrases, and in fact, I stole that from somebody. But we should borrow with pride, because if we can learn and get the pace that other sectors have got, then at least we can try to keep abreast of this issue. And finally, the last two projects come together, which is about documenting and classifying third-party quality and security software. So what's out there? What does it do? How useful is it? What problems do they solve? But also to help us to investigate and identify gaps. Where are the gaps? So we've looked at the internal solutions, we've looked externally, we've looked at third-party solutions. What problems still exist? what do we need? And we're creating a tech lab to see if we can come up with some new solutions, with practitioners being led by Oscar Carlson, who you're going to hear from later today from Cint, to see what we can do about creating solutions, new solutions for the sector. So quite an ambitious work, a lot of work that we've set ourselves, but got a great group of people on the steering group. And in fact, actually, I've got an additional person who came on just yesterday. People are coming on all the time. The important thing is all of these people have agreed to work on this project in a way that is collaborative, in a way that is open. People are sharing their expertise, their knowledge in a way to help us to come together to create solutions. This isn't about, this is mine, this is competitor, keep away, and trying to get competitive advantage. This is about creating solutions for the sector. So I just want to make a pause here and just reflect on a project that has already been going for 5 years, just as an example of what we can do already. So Melanie referred to our mobile optimization project. This is a collaborative project between MRS and 4 companies, Dynata, Kantar, Lucid and now Cint and Toluna. And it was set up to address the impact of poor mobile research design and lack of mobile optimization. And since 2016, we've had the response data from those 4 organisations, originally for a small number of countries, but now up to 13 different countries, looking at how the response trends to come up with a set of benchmark data to show what the responses are, what's happening between desktop, what's happening between mobile optimization and so on. But in addition to that, we've also been doing a satisfaction survey, testing poor mobile design on participant behaviour. And I mean, the findings over the 5 years, some of these trends are obvious in many ways. If you think about where we are and where we're going, increasing number of people obviously access surveys via mobiles. This will continue. Participants are much more likely to drop out from a mobile phone than they are from desktop. And this is narrowing year on year. The abandoned rate is a major driver of overall participant and research panel attrition, which I think is interesting. And allowing participants to choose their preferred device for research completion is important in terms of research representativity and feasibility. So these are things we found from the response data for the last 5 years. But similarly, when we've looked at the satisfaction survey results, we've come across some very interesting information about how mobile optimization is so vital in terms of the quality of data that is being derived from research. So things like dropouts from open-ended questions are much higher for non-optimized surveys, indicating a loss of engagement. Grids requiring horizontal and vertical scrolling result in drop-offs that were 3 to 4 times higher than for optimized surveys. Response options not visible on screen in not optimized surveys were much less likely to be selected by participants. And also non-optimized and less accessible pictures distorted how participants answered questions, and more lost responses and possible increased participant frustration was created as a result. All of this information has only been feasible and practical because we've been doing this project. And I see that Pete is here today. He's one of the people that's been very involved in the project, Pete Cape from Dynata. But I think it's the important thing is that the output from all of this, not only in terms of the research results, which are all available on the MRS website, is that we have got an accepted approach for shared working across those 4 research organisations. We've got agreed best practice guidance on mobile optimization, which is globally recognised and supported by associations such as the Insights Association and the Research Society in Australia. And we've actually just kicked off with the research. It's a bit like a sort of hamster wheel of doom. We've just kicked off the research process for 2023. The reason why I highlighted this, and we just wanted to spend 5 minutes just reflecting on it, is this is what success looks like in my view. And the projects that we're now working on in this space, all of those projects that we've talked about, all the things that Melanie has talked about, what we want to do is to have this kind of output where we've got collaborative working, shared understanding and guidance coming out that's helping us move forward as a sector. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Mel. There you go.
Thank you. Well, 4 of my favorite quotes, and since I'm in the UK, I was very careful to add one from Mr. Churchill. So what we're hoping to inspire you is to get involved in this work. This is an important time. And so I love Alexander Graham Bell. Great discoveries and improvements invariably involve the cooperation of many minds. I am smart in some areas and I am weak in others, and people fill my gaps. And so we can fill each other's gaps and work on this together. I have seen further, if I have seen further, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. There are giants in this room, and there are giants that will come behind me. I'm not the smartest fellow in the world, but I sure can pick smart colleagues. That's definitely my motto. I surround myself with people smarter than me. And then, Mr. Churchill, if we are together, nothing is impossible. If we are divided, all will fail. So we want everyone in this room to get involved in one of the work streams, to have your company get involved, share your data, become a part of it. Working together to take data risk out of research. This is our new, we have a new website, globaldataquality.org, and I'm excited to say that it is live. You can go there right now, and when you go on that website, you can find each of the associations that's involved, and you'll find a link that points to their respective pages of data quality content, and you'll find a button for I would like to get involved, and it will point you to someone at that association to get involved in their work stream. So go there, get involved, get your company involved. Tools already available. SMR 37 is already out there. If you're not using it, you should be. And the last iteration included some metrics that I hope everyone is really leaning into. The MRS mobile guidelines, there's the link for that, although it's not a live link, but go there and get that. And then the Insights Association's Data Integrity Language Guide and Toolkit is already out there. But keep going back, because we're going to keep iterating on it as brighter minds than ours tell us that some definitions are missing or might want to be tweaked. We will tweak them. We will work collaboratively. This is not an IA project, and it is a global project, and it is all of our language guides, not ours. So that's what we wanted to share with you today. We hope you're inspired by this opportunity, a true collaboration of associations worldwide coming together to help you. And we can't do it, though, without you. You're in the practice, and we hope that you'll be involved in the work.
Thank you both very much for that. It's amazing. I haven't seen any sort of collaboration like this in industry in my time. We've got a couple of minutes for questions. We do have questions online on the YouTube. So if you are watching on YouTube, please post that question, and someone here in the audience will give it to me. Anyone here in the audience today got a question for Mel or Debrah?
Just wanted to ask, is the mobile report, the optimization report, is that freely available?
So I'm going to repeat your question for the microphone, sorry.
I was wondering if the report, the optimization, mobile optimization, was freely available for everyone to download.
Yes, the reports are available. There's also webinars from the last 4 years of research. The top line results are available, and also the guidance is available. And it's all on. It's if you go onto the resources section, the initiative section of the MRS site, and it says mobile optimization, you can get there. But equally, if you go through the new global site as well, that will also provide the link as well.
And I think that's true for everyone. Every one of the associations is making the content available to everyone in this particular topic area because it's so important.
Yeah.
So for the Insights Association, the language guide and the DII toolkit are also available to anyone who wants to go to the website.
Any other questions? Well, Jerome, one moment.
I was interested by what you were saying about the language. And what are you thinking? I mean, you know, sometimes you got to call a cat a cat. Sometimes you got like people that are actively, bypassing the whole survey to get to the rewards, and that's fraud. And sometimes they just don't care, and they're inattentive or pretending to be someone else. So what language are you thinking of to describe the different types of bad data quality?
So we, in the language guide, we have a global term for overall quality and integrity, and that's data quality and data integrity. Sitting underneath that, though, we have things like true fraud, which is just as you described it, people faking their identity, people trying to use social security numbers to get to the incentives. But then on top of that, what we're finding is that the 40% numbers that are being thrown around, it's not 40% fraud, it's 40% data quality. So it'll be 7 to 8% true fraud. And then on top of that will be issues with duplicates, which we call out separately, especially when multi-sourcing. Duplicates are not fraud; they're just people who end up, they aren't necessarily fraud. On top of that, you have participant engagement issues due to survey design. And on top of that, you have just problems with the way the survey is orchestrated, or you just have human behavior that causes them to make mistakes in the surveys. So what we see is a ladder that says 7%. 7 to 8% is fraud. This much is duplicates. This much is data quality from the survey design. This much is just human behavior, and that might total 40%. But that 40% number often gets weeded out. So we want to call each of the areas out specifically so that we can solve them. Because if we call it all fraud and then we fix fraud, we're still going to have another 25 to 30% of data issues in a data set.
Parvis, quick question. We're due to move on.
Just an observation, having been mostly my career on the client side, there's a confidence piece. There's a piece about trust, isn't there? I mean, when we're going pitching to clients about the sample, clients obviously need to feel that the sample's going to be, that there's integrity in the sample. So you mentioned the data piece. Is that something you're going to prioritise? Because I think we need to give clients the confidence that, there's 4% fraud in the industry, not 40%.
That's right.
That's going to be really important.
That really is what we're hoping will be the next major effort, is to put together a data set similar to what we're doing on mobile, put together an industry-wide data set of survey removals that says here's why they were removed and here's the problem, and say, yes, we have fraud, and call fraud fraud, but fraud is not 40%. It might be 40% on an individual project, but overall as an ecosystem, we don't have 40% fraud. But to put numbers behind it and then have benchmarks and say, if you're seeing things that are above this, yes, you should be concerned. And also, let's make sure that those are our metrics for success. We have been able to decrease true fraud from 8% to 7% to 6% to 5%. And those become our metrics-driven success indicators.
No more time for questions. Thank you very much.